Instagram watching those videos of people frosting cookies and it just looks so pleasing? Well, today I will show you how to do that using the flooding method. I have spent many years practicing and experimenting with frosting cookies, and since it's a hobby of mine that I love, last May I took on the challenge to provide the desserts for a party of 6 people for graduation, which involved making 300 of these cookies. So I would consider myself a little expertise. So today I will be showing you how to frost a cookie using the flooding method. First, I will give you a little brief history of the cookie and the frosting that I gave during my other presentation. Then I will tell you how you want the cookie and the frosting separately and what the good ways are to have it, and then I will actually show you how to frost the cookie. So first, the history. The word cookie comes from the Dutch word cookie, spelled K-O-E-K-J-E, and it means a smaller little cake. And as I said in my presentation, they were used as testers for the oven temperatures. And then the frosting comes from the frosting of old desserts called marchpanes. And it also comes from Rebecca Price when she instructed her cook to frost the cake and then put it back in the oven to ice it over. So that's where frosting and icing comes from. So now for the cookie, first what we need. So you'll need a cookie, you'll need a toothpick or a metal pick, there's different kinds, whatever you prefer. And then you need frosting and either a piping bag or a squeeze bottle. I usually use a piping bag, but for transportation reasons, I put it in a squeeze bottle, so it's a little different for me, but bear with me. And so first for the cookie, the cookie should be flat on top. That way, if it's indented in, it doesn't flood in and cover up the inside too much. Or if it has a big hump on it, it's not going to spill over the edge. So you want a nice flat level cookie. And then for your frosting, you're going to have different consistencies because first you're going to outline it. So that outline needs to be a thicker consistency to make sure that it doesn't spill over the edge. And then when you flood it, you're going to just put it all in the middle. And so then when you put it in the middle, you want to make sure that it spreads out evenly and it's able to become smooth. And so some people use two different piping bags or bottles, and they'll do the outline and then they'll fill it in with the thinner consistency frosting and mix it. And sometimes when you do that, the outside line will harden up before you can get the inside in, and so then when it's all dried, you'll be able to see the outline. And so after a lot of experimentation, there's a consistency that works for both at the same time. So it's thick enough to hold the outline, but then it's also thin enough to fill inside the outline. So that's what I'll be using today. And like I said, the squeeze bottle is kind of weird to use. So now that I have told you about what you need in a cookie and the frosting, I will frost it for you. So you start with your cookie flat, and then you're going to do a nice steady line around the outside of the cookie. And it doesn't have to be perfect right away because you'll go in with the toothpick and smooth it out, which I will show you after. So you go ahead and pipe the outside. Whoops. Maybe. And then once you're done with that, if your frosting's a little bit thinner than you want it, you should let it harden for just a few seconds to let it, so that when you put the inside in, it doesn't all spill over. So then once you're done with the outside, you go ahead and squeeze it in. And usually when you use a piping bag, it squeezes in a lot easier. And then you want to have a good cookie to frosting ratio. So depending on how thick your cookie is, depends on how much frosting you put in. This probably should have been taken out of the fridge a bit sooner, but so once you get that in, then you can kind of shake it around to smoothen it out, and this is where your pick comes in. So you can take this pick and you can kind of just swirl the frosting to all the places that need to be covered. And if you're dripping down the edge like right there, You can just take the pick and kind of make your circle better. And then smooth it out. And it helps sometimes to shake it or pat it down to get everything set. And if there's air bubbles, you can use the pick too. And you just go in there and pop the air bubbles. And set it. And then to make sure that, like if you're going to stack the cookies, you want to make sure to let these dry. I set those out last night for probably about half an hour to make sure they're dry, because it takes quite a while for them to completely dry. And so just make sure that they're set out dry, and there's your cookie for you. So first today I told you about the history of the cookie and frosting, and then I gave you the list of materials that you'll need to frost a cookie. Then I told you about what the perfect cookie and frosting you will need to be able to use the flooding technique. And finally, I demonstrated for you how to actually frost a cookie using the flooding technique. So now that you have seen how to do it and how it all works and the pieces that go into it, I have cookies for you to try.
Yeah! Thank you, Lane.